This is day 8 of the overall ordeal, but it's the first day I've decided to write about it. Unfortunately, it may take some time to explain what I'm going through, and in order for anyone who finds this to understand everything, I need to start from the beginning. I've been shopping at thrift stores all of my adult life. Other than a few items of clothing and things that I've needed for study or work, barely anything I own is brand new. This means everything in my possession has a story behind it, and to be honest, that's the main reason I like thrift shopping so much. Almost everything I own has belonged to someone else. Everything has a history that I don't know about. Sure, I know that brand new items have this going on too. Back from the store to the delivery truck, back to the factory where it was made and packaged, back to each individual component of the product being made, and every person who had to handle each piece of the process along the way. I could go on, you get my point. Everything has a backstory, and brand new items are no exception. But thrifted items have all of this and more. In a thrift store, a toaster still in the box could have been an unwanted gift from a wedding or another celebration. A torn denim jacket could have ended up here after its first owner wore it for 10 years, travelling the whole world. A dainty silver necklace could have been passed through a family for generations. With a second-hand item, there's more of a story there, a story that I don't know. Almost everything in my house is a mystery to me, and I like it this way. All this being said, nothing strange or unexplainable has ever happened to me until now. I've bought a few creepy dolls here and there, because I like the way they look. That's just me. I've got some old paintings, an unusual looking compass type device, and a miniature treasure chest containing some heavy dusty old coins. These items, among all of the other odd little knickknacks and all of the furniture I've collected, have been proudly displayed in all of the houses I've lived in across the years. I love them all. None of them have ever caused me any trouble. It's Friday again now, but my story begins last Friday. I was browsing one of my favourite stores. I didn't have much money left for the week, after all of my necessities were covered, but I had just recently gotten rid of a ton of paperwork and textbooks that I no longer needed. And there was now an empty space on my desk that in my eyes was the perfect place to display a new oddity. I searched the store for about 15 minutes, considering various different items, but unfortunately, most of the things I really liked were out of my price range. I was about to give up and go spend my last few dollars on takeaways instead, when, on the way out of the store, I saw something in the window I hadn't seen on the way in. This store has always done themed window displays. Every month the staff would change the clothing and accessories on the mannequins and display different items to fit different themes. It was always pretty typical stuff. Come Christmas time, the mannequins would don matching Santa hats and awkwardly balance brightly wrapped Christmas presents in their lifeless hands. Summertime would bring out colourful sun hats and beach balls. Halloween usually meant witch hats, cheap rubber werewolf masks and superhero capes. When there wasn't a need for a seasonal or a holiday theme, the store would usually, in the very least, stick to a colour scheme, or one particular fashion style or era. No matter what the theme, everything always matched. They were always well put together, and nothing was ever out of place. Until now. The theme was very obviously the 80s at the moment. One mannequin was dressed in tight neon workout attire, a striped sweatband stretched around its misshapen bald head. The second one was dressed appropriately for an 80s themed dance party, frazzled curly wig and beaded necklaces included. Large coloured boxes painted to represent Rubik's Cubes were displayed in the corners of the window, and somebody had made a bunting of sorts by stringing together old cassette tapes right across the length of the window. It was all tied together nicely, and to be honest, it looked great. However, there was a third mannequin, wearing nothing but a simple mask, that from a distance appeared to be made out of paper mache. It wasn't even painted, and it was tied around the mannequin's face, loosely dangling a little to one side, with red thread. It looked so wrong, so out of place, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out how it was supposed to fit in with the rest of the window display. As I took a few steps closer, I realised it was indeed a paper mache mask, and it had an unusual lopsided smile. It looked extremely old, and I noticed that the holes through which the ribbon was threaded were worn away where the thread was pulled to the back of the mannequin's head. This mask had been worn a lot. This mask had a story, a mystery that was hidden right before my eyes. I had to take it home. The woman at the counter seemed surprised when I asked her how much for the mask in the window display. "Sorry, what mask?" she asked me. "The paper mache one on the mannequin furthest from the door," I responded. She beckoned for me to follow her over to the window, and she told me that she had recently just finished working on the display herself and left the third mannequin completely blank for her co-worker to do after their lunch break finished in 10 minutes from now. When she saw the mask, she was visibly confused. She said that her co-worker had really wanted to help out with the 80s theme in particular, and even if they had somehow come back from their lunch break without her noticing, she didn't think that they would have just chosen this unusual mask given the theme. She also said she hadn't seen the mask before, and it was quite strange that it was out on display without being priced up. But she seemed to shrug it off for the time being, and let me have the mask for just a couple of dollars. None of this really fazed me at the time, but now, after everything, I'm looking back and wondering why I didn't think twice before buying the mask. I feel stupid, maybe even a little sick. I should have known something wasn't right. Things started to feel off as soon as I got home and placed the mask in the spot I'd intended to fill. For one, it wasn't the best item to display on a flat surface. As a mask, it really should be hung on the wall or displayed on a stand or a mannequin. I figured I'd get something to hang it on eventually, but for now, I was out of money. But that wasn't really what was strange about bringing the mask home. No. I've never before understood when people talk about feeling as though they're being watched. But as soon as I placed the mask down on my desk, I felt as though it was looking back up at me. Through the hollow eyes of the mask, I could see the scratched wooden surface of my desk as clear as day, but I could feel the eyes of whoever had last worn this mask. I know I sound like I'm just talking nonsense, but I swear, the eyes were there. I could feel them watching me. A chill rushed through my whole body. It was a horrible sensation like I've never felt before. It caused me to shudder and involuntarily flail my hands around in front of my face. But as my right hand lifted from where I had been resting it on the desk, I accidentally knocked the mask and it landed face down on the floor. I took a long, slow, deep breath, and somehow I managed to convince myself that I was just imagining things, and I decided to leave the mask alone until I pulled myself together. I walked back to my living room, leaving the mask on my bedroom floor, just telling myself there was no need to get worked up over it, and I decided to throw myself into a video game for a couple of hours, just to keep my mind busy. Later on, I'd spent enough time gaming, and I'd cooked myself a pretty satisfying meal, which I washed down with a glass of red wine. So I was in a pretty comfortable headspace, just doing what I usually do with my evenings. By the time I crawled into bed, I think I had forgotten about the mask entirely. Nighttime changed everything. I don't remember dreaming at all, but I woke up to the sound of a voice in my ear. Smile. I quickly bolted upright in bed, my heart racing. I suddenly remembered the mask. and couldn't shake the feeling of being watched again. I looked over to the corner of my room where my desk was, and even in the darkness, I could clearly make out the shape of the mask back on my desk. Heart racing, I stepped out of bed, all the while in my head repeating to myself, what the hell, what the hell, what the hell? I knew I'd knocked the mask off the desk and I hadn't picked it up again. I lived alone and I'd totally forgotten about the mask for the majority of my night. I approached the mask, my heart pounding violently. I took a deep breath and flicked on the lamp on my desk and looked directly through the eye holes of the mask. Now, I know my eyes were adjusting to the sudden brightness, but at that moment, and with everything I know now, I know there were green eyes looking back at me through that mask. I've never been so afraid. The beating of my heart was starting to hurt inside my chest. Without turning off my lamp, I turned and threw myself back into bed, tossed the blankets over my head, and there I lay all night. I didn't sleep, but I didn't move a muscle until I was sure I'd heard birds singing outside my bedroom window for a decent period of time. Knowing that the sun had risen, I removed the blanket from my head and slowly sat up. My bedroom was lit with the golden glow of the sunrise, but my lamp was switched off, and the mask was back on the floor, face up this time. Once again, I felt its empty eyes staring back at me. I grabbed my phone and a change of clothing as quickly as I could. I fled from my bedroom and I closed the door. I didn't go back in there for the rest of the day. Shit, I don't have time to write anymore right now. Unfortunately, it's getting too late. Over the last 8 days, my life has changed so drastically. I'm still working out all the finer details, but I have to live by a very unusual routine now in order to survive. I have time allocated tomorrow to write more of my story after work, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to write enough to bring you fully up to date. By the time I've written everything, I'm sure you understand why it has to be this way, but for now, I have to go. It's time. It's time to smile.